Hey
Hello.
George, how you doing?
Hello.
Sorry, didn't say so. Sorry.
Welcome to week 8 of the Fitness Talk podcast. We've been into lockdown, out of lockdown, back into lockdown,
Okay.
and now we're back out of lockdown today. Okay, officially. How was your first day back?
Still going, George. Have you clocked off?
I've clocked off, mate. After I'm done this, I'm over to Mum's for some rice and sauce. You know, classic.
Hopefully your
Rice and
mum can
sauce.
cook rice better than you, anyway.
My mum's rice is infinitely better than mine, mate. Like, I don't
It's
know what
probably because she seasons it.
Yeah, but like it's not even just that. It's the texture is still kind of like not dry, but like also not
It's cooked, but it's not stodgy, but it's
it's I don't.
You know, I'm clipping that last little bit from you, right? Not dry about rice. I'm clipping that. That's happening.
Clip it. Put it on. So I'll be doing that after this. Oh no, I've actually got one more client. That's a lie. Oh crumbs! I thought I was done.
I'd love it if you were already on the halfway home and then we're like, oh.
Yeah, I just remembered it's a new client as well, so I can't be walking on. You know, it's got to be good. You know, not that it's not good for anyone else. Still excellent PT all round, just so you all know. So welcome. So today we thought we'd discuss recovery and the soreness that you get post training and how to mitigate it, I guess, and why it's not, essential that you feel terribly sore after every session. There's kind of this thing going around in the fitness industry where people don't feel like they've done an effective enough session unless they feel really, really sore for the coming days. And we just wanted to just to talk about that a little bit and tell you why that's not necessarily true. So the first question I've got for you guys is, what is the best way to recover and get the most out of the session that someone has had in the following hours and days to come? Let's start with yourself, Jack.
So immediately after session, the first thing would be to think about how you take in food post session, what that's going to be. It can be a meal or a shake if it's more convenient for you. I think shakes get a lot of bad reps a lot of the time. Like, either people overuse them or people don't use them at all because they feel they're bad, they're full of chemicals, which is true a lot of the time. There can be bad brands in the sense that there's a lot of fillers, a lot of crap in them to make them taste good. So you have to choose the right brand.
Don't go for the thick ones.
Yeah, exactly. But the main benefit for them is convenience. So I imagine the same for both of you. I use them sometimes when, especially if it's a busy day, instead of having to sit down for a full meal, I can have that post-training, or when I need to take in some food, I'll have one of those instead of have a full meal. The preference would be a full meal, but it's not always possible. That would be the first point of call post-session. And then after that, the next days, every day, would be the optimal thing is sleep. Banged on a lot about sleep in previous episodes, and I will probably in others because it's the most important thing. You definitely need I think it's guided that there's 7.5 to 8 hours, but 8 hours. Get that consistent every day.
Yeah, cool. So anything to add to what Jack said there?
Well, I would disagree with all of that. I would say so. If you do a leg session, the best way to recover is when you finish, just keep training legs. So if you've just done squats, then just go home and do more squats. And then instead of sleeping, just do a ski sit. Just to keep the blood flowing, because obviously blood provides nutrients. And then when you get up in the morning and when your legs are in real pain, run as fast as you can immediately. Yeah. When they're tight and sore, as fast as you can immediately when you wake up.
And end with burpees and box squats.
And
jump squats.
Jump squats are like that's how you get out of bed. You do 10 jump squats.
Immediate jump squat, yeah.
No, absolutely. Nutrition's key. I know there used to be a big thing about this anabolic window that seems to be a lot longer and a lot broader than just like 5 seconds after you finish the workout. So you've got a couple of hours there. So getting your nutrients in is absolutely key. Your body's just broken down a load of muscle tissue and just lost a load of nutrients. So it's in a state where it is ready to absorb and ready to put into work. So a shake's really handy if you haven't got any, if you haven't got time in between sessions on what you're doing, or it's going to be a long time between when you finish your workout and your next meal. 100% I'm down with that. Sleep again, absolutely advocate that, because you could have a great training session, you can have great nutrition, terrible sleep, and not recover at all. But also then again, back up everything with your protein, especially if you're training with, well, any training actually, just make sure that you're getting adequate protein in, because carbs are great, fat's great, but neither of them actually repair muscle tissue. They do all the great things in the body. So if it's your muscles that are needing to recover, you need to supply them with a nutrient that actually helps them do that. And they're the building blocks of muscle tissue. So adequate protein in there, but all the things Jack would say, just that protein intake on top then.
Yeah, I would agree. Just quickly on the anabolic window, what's your guys' take on that? Is because there was a study not a few years back now that they did on someone a certain set of people post workout, then they got them the protein in, and they did certain and there's another group didn't have that. They didn't get their protein in the anabolic window straight after training, but they did the same workout, same nutrition, same amount of protein intake total, and actually the results were the same. And it was a very small study, I believe, so it wasn't conclusive or anything.
Yeah.
When they tested the muscle post session, however, the people who had the protein post session did have more presence of protein in the site that they trained, I believe. But actually, at the end of it all, the results were very, very similar from a hypertrophy perspective. What do you guys think on that? Do you think it's essential, or do you think it's something that's just marginal gains there?
I think it's not something to be viewed as you have to do. I think it's more to be viewed as what's optimal, probably. Is it more optimal the sooner you can replace exactly what Simon said, when you've broken down muscle tissue, to replace with things that are going to help rebuild that? Yeah, that makes sense. But does it have to be done within such a specific time of 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it states to be? No. Like, if you can have it within the hour, brilliant. If not, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to put an inch on your bicep by having it within the hour, and then not an inch on your bicep. Like, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. So you're talking about such fine details that for the people in the general public, it makes no difference whatsoever.
Doesn't really matter.
And it is, and I think you're
stress
right on that. It is fine. It's fine details there, and I think George, you covered it. The people have the same in the study. The people have the same nutritional intake, and the results were the same. And generally, that's how it's going, isn't it? Because just because I drink or eat protein 20 minutes after a workout doesn't mean I've absorbed that protein 20 minutes after my workout. It just means that my body's up-regulating protein synthesis a little bit faster because I've got it. But I won't digest the food any quicker. It's not going to move any quicker. It just, when it gets digested, I'll be able to shuttle it into the cells. But again, the whole thing is that if you're going to struggle later on with getting food and you don't know if you'll get the nutrients, that's when that window, I think, is usable. But more importantly, that window is more important for athletes than it is the general pop, because athletes are looking for that 1%. They're looking for that, even that 0.5% that's going to boost them and get them ahead of competitors if possible. So they're going to pay attention to post-workout nutrition.
So you're talking potential rate. You're talking potential rate of recovery might be slightly quicker if they're recovering.
Yeah.
So from
a general population,
Now, in terms of a pre-workout, guys, and we went to the seminar in Ireland where Meadows, you talked about carbohydrates pre-workout with a bit of not BCAAs, it was EAAs, essential amino acids, EAAs. What's your take on that, guys? What's your take of the pre-workout carbs that people recommend? Is it necessary?
Do you want to say this one?
Well, it's such a funny one, man. It's like, I've seen people in all sorts of states of life you know, being like, oh, you know, I'm really trying to lose weight now, so I'm in the gym, and like I just like to have, you know, a Lucozade before I go to the gym just to get me through it. And I'm like, wow, what are you talking about? Well, just to give me energy. I'm like, the thing you're trying to do is burn energy. You're trying to create the deficit of energy. So like pre-workout nutrition for me is just, you know what I mean, eat the food that you're planning to eat that day. There's, unless you're, again, a powerlifter who's looking for some sort of stimulant, unless you're an elite athlete who's looking to perform at a peak level, you should be okay with following and hitting your daily nutrient intakes just as a normal person. I don't think, you know, all us boys, we've all done it. We've all trained after probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 or more hours of not eating. Life was okay.
It's fine.
It doesn't mean you need to go and having that chocolate bar or whatever fizzy drink before you go and train. It's not really going to do anything for your energy level in that moment in time. But it will not help your calorie surplus or deficit situation in the post-workout situation or your overall goal. But I'm just not a big fan of people having to take things in order to work out just to give themselves energy. Because a lot of
you're talking there specifically from a weight loss perspective, right? Is that
I'm
what you're
talking about
saying?
even just overall. Like it's different if you're looking to gain weight, then that's different. You're trying to get calories in wherever possible, so you're trying to get meals in before, post-workout shakes, high calories after, or post-workout meal after. But that's completely different. But just the general pop, I think the thing that I would support the most out of all pre-workout things is having a nice black coffee, possibly. And that's about it.
So you get a caffeine stimulant.
Caffeine
it's
stimulant,
got nothing else in it.
I think the point I was going to add to the previous one was, if you're thinking about that anabolic window and those sort of things, if you're worrying about that, you've probably got your head in the wrong space. You want to be looking probably the other end, which links back to this point, is that if you're finding that you're having to take a Lucozade or even like the pre-workout shakes you have to have before, like a Red Bull before you train, there's probably bigger things at play. Either you're not recovering, right? So there's lots of things you should look at there, or you're training. It's a mix. You're training too much. You're doing too much volume too often, the wrong type of training too often, so you're not able to recover because you're bashing your body to the ground all the time. So if you're looking at those things, being like, oh, I need to get a pre-workout because I'm tired, I need to do this, I'd forget all of that. Look at how you're recovering, how you're sleeping, what you're doing after your sessions, more than spending your money on anything like that.
So how often do you hear, sorry to jump in there, Jack, or George, but how many times do you hear people just being tired, and they're just tired all the time, do you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, just, you know, I'm fatigued and stuff like that. And again, just like you said there, they, you know, look at your nutrition. Just have a look at when you're going to bed. Is there any regularity in the consistency of your life? You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that you're doing that's changing? You know, these people just don't, or most people just don't seem to be able to connect the dots of like, I feel crap. What is going on? What am I eating? What could I be doing better that makes me feel better? Because stimulants are there and should only ever be there for like little pick-me-ups and little hits, and if used correctly, it can be really good. But how many people rely on all these types of sugary drinks for energy boosters, coffees, left, right, and centers for? And the reality is, if all things are well and you're having enough nutrients in your body with enough water and everything else, you should not feel lethargic and tired every single day.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's important for the people who are listening to understand what actually happens when we train, so they can understand why we lay so much importance in what we do outside of this training session. All the stuff that you guys have said about nutrition and sleep, for example. So I think, especially early on in someone's training life, if they're trying to build muscle, they think that the session itself is building the muscle. It's, you know, and it's what is effectively happening. I'm sure you guys can add to this if you feel like you need to. Is that you're breaking down tissue at that point? Okay, so you're digging essentially a hole, and that hole needs to be filled. So if you're digging a hole and never filling it back up with the correct stuff, or even not filling it up at all, then you're never going to build that muscle, right? So if you're not filling that up with sleep and nutrition, then it's unlikely that you're going to build any muscle at all, and you'll probably start to get injured and feel fatigue, which is the point that you just made there, Simon. That if you start to feel fatigue, that's when you get reach for these pick-me-up drinks, and it becomes not a once-a-month thing, it becomes a every day, or every time I go to training, there's my pre-workout. So I think it's important to know that, and it doesn't have to just be from a muscle building perspective. Every time you do a workout, you're breaking stuff down that you need to replace, okay, with good quality food and good quality sleep. Would you like anything to add to that, guys? Have I missed anything on that one?
Well, I think one thing we haven't spoken about is hydration after a session, especially with big sweaty classes and exercise programs like that, where people end like spin classes. I don't know why spin classes. You always seem to sweat way more when you do like a spin class or anything on a bike than anything else. But you come out dripping, and obviously you feel super lean because you've just lost a ton of water, and then you could go step on the scale and you're like, oh my God, I'm 2 kilos lighter. You need to drink all that back, because all of that is just lost through sweat. You can't stay like that, because then you'll end up dehydrated. Unfortunately, you need to put those 2 kilos back on wherever it is you lost through drinking throughout the rest of the day. You don't sit there and then down 2 kilograms worth of water. That'd be insane. What you do is throughout the day, you have to replace that water so that you end up hydrated and back to an equilibrium, rather than just sitting dehydrated for the rest of the day.
And you'd be also encouraging people, I guess, beforehand. You know, you've got a spin class today at some point.
Well, just in general, it's general advice, isn't it, right? But just something to be aware of, because I think that's something to forget. People think, which we spoke about food as well, but then also hydration is so important to help with that recovery. Because if you're leaving your workout dehydrated and not replacing that, all your recovery afterwards is going to be slightly affected.
Yeah. With regards to the soreness that we get post-training session, what do you guys think is a reasonable amount of time for that to last for someone if you feel like they're recovering well from not at all to...
I would say about 6 days.
6 days. No. Severe soreness for 6 straight days.
Yeah, like crippling pain.
Yeah.
If you're a newbie to the gym, you're going to be sore, all right? Unless you take it really easy and you do, you're doing step ups, or you're doing not massive eccentrics on anything, and you're not loading too heavy and keeping the amount of sets per muscle group really low. There's going to be a degree of soreness, but that's to be expected if you're brand new to the gym. But if you've been in a gym for a couple of months, then your soreness should last no more than a day, unless you've got a brand new stimulus in there. I find anyway, because the more muscle soreness you have, the less activity that you do during the day, just because you're avoiding the soreness. We've all been there where we've trained our legs to the point where we're all walking like John Wayne, but then we don't move that well for the next 3 or 4 days. So we've talked about it in the past, where it leaves you to the point where you're on a weight loss goal, you go and you kill yourself in the gym, and then you don't move for 4 days, and you've just missed out on 4 days of calorie burning because you haven't moved. So what was more efficient? The session that you absolutely murdered yourself in and thought, oh, that's class, I can't barely walk, but then receive no results, or the session where you're like, oh, do you know what? Like, I don't actually feel too bad this morning. I might go out for a long walk this evening. I might go for a cycle, or I might do X, Y, and Z, because you feel great. And then in the end, give you more results. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. Jack, anything to add to that?
Yeah, 100%. If you're leaving your training sessions every time and you're sore for 3 or 4 days after, you need to change what you're doing, because you're doing something is wrong, in the sense that, one, your training is probably off, in the sense you're doing too much, or you're definitely not recovering right.
Yeah, so either way, something's got to give, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's common though, isn't it, George? Like, you've probably seen it so many times in our last job, where people are trying to kill themselves in the gym, and I would say that females are probably worse at it, because men just like rest in between stuff, like as a whole. But you would get a higher population of women who will train 5 days of classes back to back, and they will be sore and they will be getting fatigued as they go on, but they think it's sort of like a great thing, when it's not. You see them, they're in pain all the time. And what usually happens is it leads down the road of injury then, and overuse, and And then people are like, oh, I don't understand what's happening. You're constantly breaking down. There's no regeneration here. You know what I mean? Give your body a chance to actually heal.
Yeah, there's such a culture of. Oh, sorry, George. There's such a culture of. There's such a culture of go, go, go all the time that's glorified, and that, oh, I'm doing this killer workout, and then especially like we say all the time with classes where it's glorified, like you're able to post on social media, oh, I got absolutely killed by so and so, or I was destroyed, blah blah blah, and so that's then seen by everyone else, and so they seem to think that's what they need to achieve, that's what they need to strive for, when it's not. Whereas what isn't celebrated is going, actually, I'm fucked. I need to sleep and go to bed. Because it's not Instagram worthy, but that's the thing that should be celebrated, and knowing that actually I need to take it back. I need to just do way less volume in my session today, or whatever it needs to be in order for you to actually perform optimally. Whereas, and it's the same even just outside of exercise, where people are like, oh, the hustle, the grind and things like that, where everyone seems to be working from 5 a.m. till 10 at night. And that's glorified in the sense that, oh, that's what it needs to be successful doing that, where it's not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think I was talking to Tom D today, and he was talking, referenced this guy on, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast as an MMA coach. And this is even talking into the athletic world, not just the general population. He was saying he trains his guys, no more than 80% in terms of how hard they train. And what that essentially means is, for the people who are absolutely blasting themselves into the ground and can only do 5 sessions in a week, he can do 8, 10 sessions with his guys, because he's brought the intensity and the density of his sessions right down, so they can just get a lot more hours in. Don't get me wrong, with those guys, I'm sure there's moments where they have to, really, really push, because, they've got a fight at the end of a period. But his point is the point that we're making, and that's relative all the way through from general population all the way to high level athlete, where he's going, actually, if I train you 100% every single day, you're not going to go to that fight well prepared. You're going to start to break down and maybe even get injured for the fight or in the fight. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. If you want to train 5 times a week, perhaps 3 of those sessions should be about 60 to 80% in terms of your intensity or whatever. And maybe just one of those sessions where you're like really, really pushing. So that's another thing to think about with regards to recovery, is not just the stuff you do outside, but the exercise choices and difficulty of the sessions that you're doing in.
Even if you go under the athletic populations, like even if you really are top level competitors in CrossFit, let's say, which is a hard sport, you know what I mean? They boast about training every day. I guarantee that they're never sore. I guarantee that the big boys in the big leagues are never sore. They're not training themselves to death. They're very, very smart about programming when they do their strength work. They have lots of hours in between doing like high strength stuff and WODs. You know what I mean? They were always focused on recovery, because they wouldn't be at the level they're at. Our Olympic athletes are all about recovery. Like, most of the time, they're like the sports, this, Jack, the coaches are about trying to not injure them and make them a bit more bulletproof for the sport. But the focus is, when we had Leon here, is recovery. Do you know what I mean? Make sure that you're getting the sessions and being recovered. So you're looking at the 5 sessions a week, back to back, you're training full body all the time and pummeling it. Like, the best athletes in the world don't do that, man. The biggest power lifters in the world, they might do a small off training style where they squat 5 days a week, but that's a very, very strategically planned squatting session. Loading patterns going up and down, volume going up and down, where they're trying to minimize how sore they are and how much they can gain out of it. So you can't just beat your body up all the time and expect that they thank you at the end of it.
Yeah, because if you're sore, like you said about the movement, you're also not going to be training. You're not going to want to train that hard the next day. If you're, let's say if you do multiple lower body days, well, people can be sore for 5-6 days after a really savage session. what if you're training legs on Monday? You're savagely sore by the time you get to Wednesday. That session's not going to be very efficient. Your load's probably going to be right down anyway, and you're probably not going to want to hit the same volume as you'd planned. So why not take the difficulty of the session on Monday down just a little bit, and then you can maximize 3 different sessions rather than just that one session where you buried yourself. So yeah, I think that's some really good points there, guys, as well as the nutrition side of things. I think
people forget also that for your body to fully recover after a good session, it takes 48 hours to fully go back. So,
and that's if you're doing it all right.
Yeah, it's not just something you can recover in an afternoon from and be fully ready and everything's back to normal the next day. That's why you're sore the next day.
Yeah.
So 48 hours is how long it takes to fully allow your body, its nervous system, everything to recover. Maybe longer for some people.
Yeah. Many bodybuilders had it right years and years and years and years ago. That's where big body splits came from, because they realized that they can't just keep pummeling their body in their ground, because they obviously seeing diminishing returns, and then they realized that they need to give themselves a break in between. So that's why they went to doing lower body and upper body, or chest and back and arms and all that, just so they can give muscle groups rest in between, so they can then maximize the station then after that, And it seems so simple. Like, that information's been around for such a long time. It just is ignored all the time, because we get these pictures painted to us that you exercise hard all the time.
Yeah.
And I always say, if it's Instagram, if it's YouTube and all that, look at these people doing the exercises, man. They're always wearing makeup and they're all dolled up. Nobody looks like that training. Nobody looks like that training. When they're showing you a workout, being like, oh, this is my new favorite lower body workout. Look at their faces. Is there any sweat, or is there any grimacing? Because if there isn't, that's not the workout that they're using. That's just something they're trying to sell you.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't. These exercises they give out, it's not what they did to get themselves in the shape that they got themselves in. Yeah, that's quite right.
No one used one exercise to get them anywhere. People used a combination of very strategically planned exercises to get them somewhere.
Yeah. What would you say is too long in terms of soreness? So let's say someone's sore for 2-3 days. That's quite a lot, I think. But if someone is sore from training for 5-6 days, is there anything else going on there, or is it just severe DOMS? Is there anything else going on at the connective tissue level or anything like that? Or is it just that they're just not recovering very well, the session wasn't right, and whatever?
Recovering as a whole is most likely the story. It's not really my lane to go into if there's something physiologically wrong or hormonally or anything like that, but the first thing I would ask is how much they're sleeping, what are they eating on a regular basis, not just after the session, because if it's continual, it could easily be that they're not eating the right things or right amount of things for their body to use to repair itself. That's why it's still sore. Those are the things I would look at. And if it's going on for 5-6 days, that's way too long.
Yeah, I agree completely. I always think if you're still in a lot of pain after 3 days, then something's seriously wrong in terms of your recovery, or your session was just, it's very, I used to read bodybuilding magazines and stuff when I was younger, and the information in there is never put into context. It's just, much like men's health and all that sort of stuff, and the women's magazines, they just there could be a magazine with 100 articles, and every one of them are contradicting each other. It's just, all they're looking for is just information. They sell magazines. They don't give a shit about the actual information, really, a lot of the time. But somebody going in and doing a workout that's for an advanced lifter, it's just, people can't go in and just start doing bodybuilding splits. You can't do stuff like that. People can't go in and just do full leg sessions. That's how you end up not being able to walk, unless you have a good, I would say for full lower body sessions or full upper body, you'd need to have at least a year training behind you before you're into that kind of volume for one muscle group. But the information's misleading all the time out there. People just are given snippets and slices. Again, we talk about Instagram. Have you ever looked at some of the workouts that are out there? You look at the amount of
You see them
volume
all
on
the
there.
time,
There's
yeah.
15 exercises on there for legs or
Yeah.
glutes or something. I'm like, you need 15 exercises for glutes.
And that's the thing, you can't always, and if it's that many exercises, you can't achieve the actual desired intensity on them anyway.
That's it. Your last 7 exercises are
What are you going to be?
pointless.
Yeah.
You may like you look at again, if we use athletes, you look at these because athletes are good to look at because they're the pinnacle of physical capabilities and they're doing things the right way because there's science backing it. But I mean, you look at sprinters, you look at track and field athletes, you look at their glutes and their leg development stuff. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they're doing split squats, lunges, squats, deadlifts, RDLs, and some variant of those exercises, but they aren't going around doing the glute pump machine.
No.
They aren't doing side leg abductions and all that. You know what I mean? They're not getting sucked in by doing like a million exercises. They bring up their imbalance. What they do is they do a really good exercise really well.
Yeah. And then
And
balance it
then
out
you
by
get
doing,
great development because you're doing
Well, that's
really
it.
well.
They do the simple things over and over again,
Yeah.
remarkably well. That's why the people who are at the top get to the top, or the people that recover the best, because they do the boring, simple things super well. They go to bed at 10. They get up at the same time at 8 every day. They have that routine. They know what they need to eat. They do all the boring stuff every day, all the time. And that's why they're there, and that's why there's only a few of them, because most people quite clearly can't and don't do it because they don't want to, because it's not fun or it's not glamorous, but that's what they do.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, that's really motivating. That was just motivate the whole room. But it's true. It's absolutely true.
It's true.
You know, if you want to optimize your performance and get better results in the long run, that's what you need to do most of the time, and that's just 100%. The way it is. Yeah.
What would you? Let me just throw a question. What would you do if you? Sorry, Jack, to jump in there.
That's right. I've actually got to shoot, just so I got to prep for the guy coming in at 3. So
no worries, Jack. Yeah, nice to see you, mate.
Right. And you. See you later.
Bye bye.
I was going to say, what would you do if you had a client come in who was sore, who had sore legs from your last training session, and you had legs planned for your workout? What would you do?
So it very much depends on the level. So let's just assume that they're really sore. I would first look at the last session. Let's say I just did quads on the last session and my goal was to do hamstrings. Then I'd just go ahead and do the hamstrings and maybe just do the hip extension rather than knee flexion. You know stuff like getting someone on a leg curl when their quads are really sore. Pressure on the thighs itself is just unpleasant. So I might just do that. If I'd done a bit of hamstrings and a bit of quads, I'd try and gauge where was the sorest. So again, if it was thighs as an example, or the front of my thighs are so sore, then I'd still try and train hamstrings and glutes. But if it's terribly sore all round, I don't know, I might be inclined to not do very much lower body at all, and maybe do a little bit of foam rolling.
Yeah, but it's a topic. Would you alter the session, or don't you? That's where I'm getting at. You alter the session. You would alter the session. Well, we plan to do loads of legs anyway, so we're just going to stick with that. I know you're in pain, but you alter sessions accordingly. You might be, some sled work or prowler work where you know that it's not going to give them any more DOMs. But if anything, it's probably going to give them more blood supply there to help it, But you don't go in there and just just carry on. And again, you get what I'm getting at is you get people who come in these sessions like, my legs are sore, but we'll just carry on. It's normal, and you're like, no.
No, yeah.
No, it's just you know what I mean. But clear that area, and let's just work on the rest. There's loads of other parts of the body to train. So it's just, and especially in the female community, upper body to them is not as exciting. So they all want to train for a leg, but they're not that excited about training upper body unless it's tagged on.
Yeah, and I think again, it goes back. I don't want to keep talking about classes, but it goes back to if you are doing multiple classes in a week, you have no idea what those classes are, how those classes are designed that week. You're going to get a lot of the same muscle group, and if you're not recovering very well, or if the sessions are just too savage, you're going to hit legs or 3-4 times a week when they're really, really sore, and that's when you risk injury. So if you know, that's where the one-on-one training or training by yourself following a structured plan that you can have some margin to change is a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend that if someone was severely sore. But then again, I would be thinking, hey man, it's been 3 days. Why are you still so sore?
Yeah, what's going on?
You know, what's going on here? So yeah. Yeah, cool. Have we missed anything, Simon? Anything you think we've missed?
No, I think so. In terms of recovery and stuff, I always think so. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that people just need to pay attention to recovery. Like you said before, you're breaking muscle down. You're digging that hole. You need to replenish that hole back up, otherwise the hole's going to get deeper. And the same with the training. You know, it's very easy to recover at the start. You'll get strong no matter what. Just neurologically, you'll get strong. But there's going to come a day where your training will stagnate, and that might just be the fact that you're not recovering.
Yeah.
Nice and simple.
Yeah, and you need to get that right, and then you'll see more results again. I just wanted to quickly make a point because I read something today about vitamin D again, and we did a podcast a few weeks ago about vitamin D. I know it's a little off topic, but it was talking about how sometimes when they've measured in this study, when they measured people with vitamin D, a high presence of vitamin D in their bloodstream, that it still didn't have an effect on their immune system. And again, it goes back to that point of, because they can't metabolize it, it's not having any effects. They're taking these supplements, or they're sitting in the sun, or whatever it might be, however they're getting it, and it's just going into their bloodstream and just going out, and nothing's really happening. So it goes back to the point that I made in the other podcast about the presence of dietary fats, that without them, the body won't, the vitamin D will attach itself to those fats, dietary fats, then they'll be absorbed into your cells and used, okay, and metabolized. So do not go on a low fat diet, is my point. If you're trying to lose weight, drop your calories, move a bit more, and you'll lose weight. You don't have to go zero fat to do it. So we're talking about this with
so much in digestion and carrying stuff. Like that's why the egg, Serrano always talked about the egg being the perfect nutrient pool for any one food, because it's got the fat, it's got the protein, and they're both there to help each other do the proper work. The fat will help the protein be delivered. It carries it and then supply all the nutrients to the body, and then vice versa. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point because I read that study popped up on my news feed today, and I had a quick read over of it. So I thought it's just important to just bring that point back up, especially because there's still a virus around. You know, vaccination or otherwise, it's still there. So,
yeah, exactly.
So look after yourselves. Alrighty, I think that's enough for today, Simon. So I will see you. Well, I'll see you in person tomorrow. You know, distancing. You know, but we'll see you all back on here next week.
All right. See you later.
Alrighty. Thanks, Si. Have a good one.
And you.
Thanks for listening all.